Hey, what's up? Welcome to the first episode of Celestial Sundays. I am Moonlit Britt, and I am so happy to be here and incredibly grateful to Shady Pines Radio for giving me this opportunity to connect with all of you. Celestial Sundays will be 2 hours of music and talk about all things magical. What does that mean exactly? Well, this show will be heavily based around astrology, spirituality, metaphysics, divination, and most things that fall under the umbrella of mysticism. If you're hoping to learn more about the zodiac, the law of attraction, meditation, crystals, rituals, past lives, spirit guides, angels, and such, you have come to the right place. It is my sincere hope that I will not only teach you something on the show, but that I will inspire you to dig deeper into your own research, to empower you to accept, love, and honor who you really are without the conditions society has placed on you, to encourage you to connect with your higher self and discover your personal blueprint, all while motivating you to dive deeper into your spiritual journey. And there are so many ways to do that. So I am here to assist you and perhaps point you in the right direction. So I hope you listen to the show with an open mind and a compassionate heart. Now, I figured for our debut show, we would talk about something we are all familiar with, and that is the zodiac. As most of you know, there are 12 signs in the zodiac, and right now, the sun is officially in Virgo. It is the second day of Virgo season, just started, super fresh, so I thought I would play some music performed by some well-known Virgo artists and also offer some insight into the characteristics of Virgos, as well as discuss the meaning of birth charts. I will be playing blocks of 3 different songs, all by artists who were born during the Virgo sun. Let's get this Sunday morning started with some lively music and good vibes, shall we? I can't think of a better way to kick off the show than with the Irish Virgo Van Morrison and his song Domino. Oh, that song is so good. That was Billy Preston, a Virgo born on September 2nd, with the song Will It Go Round in Circles. And that guy was quite the renowned session musician before branching out on his own, and started out as a bit of a child prodigy on the piano when he was young. And in his career, he played for so many famous musicians in the studio, most notably the Beatles. And before that, you heard Amy Winehouse covering Valerie with Mark Ronson, and both her and Mark Ronson are Virgos. So what is a Virgo? Well, Virgo means the virgin. It is the 6th sign in the zodiac, falling between the dates of August 22nd and September 23rd, that beautiful sweet spot of the year where summer is coming to a close and fall is right around the corner. The weather is typically perfect. It's a really nice time. All zodiac signs fall into one of 4 categories: earth, fire, water, and air. There are 3 signs to each element, and Virgo is an earth sign. The other earth signs are Capricorn and Taurus. Earth signs are level-headed, stable, and yes, down to earth. They're dependable and grounded, and because they're so reliable, they're usually trustworthy in business and professional settings. So that is something to keep in mind there. They're earthy though, right? So they're in touch with the land around them. This makes them creative and artistic, as well as excellent cooks, gardeners, and they're low-key super sensual. They're also amazing with animals. Earth signs are also known for being stubborn, overly logical, rigid, and easily bothered if their routine is disrupted, and they tend to be workaholics. Now, each earth sign is different in their own way, and we're going to discuss now what separates Virgo from the other earth signs. Virgos are renowned for being well organized and methodical. They usually have the best advice and the most efficient, well-laid plans. They're pragmatic and patient, and on the reserved side, they're also super prone to anxiety and over-analyzing. They're perfectionists. They can't help it. The Virgo mind starts to look at every angle, and they want to make sure everything is planned and precise. And if they are freaking out, you would never know. They keep that on the inside. On the outside, they are cool and calm and collected. They work hard. They're very diligent, and they devote themselves to whatever task is at hand. I mean, they throw themselves into their work. And they can be incredibly creative in everything they do. They're kind and particular, but also highly critical, a little uptight, sometimes picky, even petty, and they tend to be worrywarts. But again, they can't help it. That over-analytical mind will get them every time with the worrying. They're also incredibly helpful. They really just want what's best for those they love, and they will always be honest with you. They won't sugarcoat it, but they will say it how it is in a fair, tactful way. So, I am sure you know someone who is a Virgo. Maybe you're a Virgo. Did I describe you guys well? Let me just say that I think that Virgos are the person that you want in your corner. They're the ultimate friend. If you're not a Virgo, let me offer you a little piece of advice. They're usually right, and they usually have the best way of doing things. Not always, but 9 times out of 10, Virgos got it. So when you ask for their advice, take it. Because if you don't, it might not go the way you want it to. And you might get a slight told you so from them. And with that being said, let's get another 3-song block going. Here is Virgo Elvis Costello with Pump It Up. Oh my God. Those last 2 songs got me getting down in my chair. Oh, that bass line to Young Lust is so dope. Great blues-based guitar too. Roger Waters of Pink Floyd was born on September 6th, and while he doesn't sing the lead vocals in Young Lust, he does play the guitar and do backing vocals. I just love that song. And the last song we just heard was one of the greatest American rock bands of all time, Aerosmith. Joe Perry, an absolute monster of a guitar player, was born on September 10th. His riffs, man. Oh my gosh, Aerosmith, what a catalog. Isn't it funny that we all know who Joe Perry and Steven Tyler are, but who are the other 3 super talented guys in Aerosmith? Do you know their names? Can you tell me who they are right now? They're Tom Hamilton on bass, Brad Whitford on guitar, and Joey Kramer on drums. Now, there is so much more to your zodiac chart than just your sun sign. What is your sun sign? It's the sign that the sun was in when you were born, and it's the most important influence in your birth chart. When someone comes up to you at a bar and they say, "Hey, what's your sign?" They're talking about your sun sign. The sun stays in a zodiac sign for approximately 30 to 31 days, depending on the year. But did you know there's way more to it? It goes deep, baby. Have you ever read a description of your sign? And a lot of the traits ring true, but some don't make any sense for you at all. That is because there are many more factors at play when it comes to it doesn't just start and end with your sun sign. Each planet in our solar system will have been in a particular zodiac sign at the time you were born, and that all depends on your location and time of birth. Earlier, I described the basic traits of a Virgo. Some Virgos may hear that and feel it's pretty spot on, except maybe they're not as pragmatic or logical as others. Maybe they cry easily or get more emotional than the average Virgo. Well, this would indicate your moon sign. The position of the moon when you were born is how you determine your moon sign, and the moon represents your emotions. The moon is the second most important influence in your natal chart. The sun and moon together strongly influence how you operate. So for example, if you are a Virgo sun with a Cancer moon, you definitely will be way more sensitive than someone with, say, a Virgo or Gemini moon. It's also interesting to consider someone who has a Virgo moon and a different sun. So let's say you're a Pisces, and Pisces are known to be pretty sensitive, maybe a little daydreamy, but their moon is in Virgo. So emotionally, they are, excuse me, actually more restrained or cautious, more collected. So the difference with a moon sign versus a sun sign is the moon only stays in one sign for about 2 to 3 days versus the sun, which stays in a sign for about a month. Do you know someone who has a birthday close to yours? You're both the same sun sign. And while you're a lot alike in some ways, you're very different in others. Well, if they were born 3 or more days after or before you, their moon sign is going to be different. And that is where the differences begin. Speaking of the moon, let's tune into some powerful feminine energy. The next 3 songs will feature 3 badass Virgo female vocalists. And who better than to start the block than Pink? Here's Pink with Just Like Fire. Now there are some boss females, such incredibly powerful voices. Pink, Florence and the Machine, and Amy Mann of Till Tuesday with Voices Carry. Florence and the Machine with Dog Days Are Over. She gives me such awesome witchy vibes. I really feel like she is this modern day or this generation Stevie Nicks. All three Virgos and all three massive forces. As for Amy Mann, she has gone on to do so much producing and songwriting, solo work, a lot of behind the scenes in the music industry. She's incredibly well known and very busy. A fun fact, she played the female nihilist in The Big Lebowski, the one who actually cut off her toe for Bunny. That's one of my favorite movies of all time. All right, so let's get into the third most important placement in your zodiac chart. And this is your rising sign, also called the ascendant. And it is often described as our mask because it is how we present ourselves to the world. It is our social personality in a way, and it is often reflected in our outward style. Your rising sign is determined by the planetary influence, which was rising on the eastern horizon when you were born. Now, my rising sign is in stark contrast to my sun sign. My sun sign is Cancer and my rising sign is Sagittarius. So until I decided to dig deep into astrology when I was a teenager, I had always wondered, okay, every time I read about Cancer, I'm supposed to be slightly introverted, very much a homebody, kind of shy, and that was not me. I did not identify with that at all. And then I found out that I was a rising Sag, and that made all the sense in the world. Sagittarius is a very fun and open and extroverted. They love adventure. They love to travel, and they're always down for a good time. So I figured it out real quick, and I want you guys to figure it out too. So where can you determine your own birth chart? Honestly, I could go on and on about Sagittarius and just how they're kind of like the they're the goof of the zodiac. They're great. But that's for another time. It's a sign that I absolutely adore. So anyway, where can you determine your own birth chart? Well, back when I was in high school, we had to figure out our natal charts with books. And that's not the case today. I mean, you still can. I still have those books. And if you would rather do it that way, then by all means, go for it. But today it really is so easy. Just do an internet search for free birth charts and so many options will pop up. Aside from your birthday, you need to know your time of birth and location of birth. This is incredibly important because there are different time zones and the sky is changing above us as we turn. So most people know where they were born, but a lot of people run into the challenge of the actual birth time. You can still pull your chart and find out what your moon sign and what the other planet signs were when you were born, but you won't be able to determine your rising sign without your actual birth time. So dig out your birth certificates, baby books, or call a parent or guardian so you can get that full birth chart analysis. For the next 3 songs, we're going to feature another female-led group. This song is a bit darker, and there are actually 2 versions of it, and they're both very different from one another. The one that I am choosing to play is from the major motion picture Romeo and Juliet, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. The song is Number One Crush by Garbage. You just heard Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers doing Breakdown. Tom Petty is not a Virgo, but one of his heartbreakers is Benmont Tench, who plays the organ and piano. And to be honest, I am a big fan of his work and the many collaborations he has done on the side as well. Before that, The Runaways with Cherry Bomb, and both Joan Jett and Lita Ford are Virgos. Okay, so we have discussed the sun signs, moon signs, and ascendant, aka rising sign. And while I consider these to be the big 3, there are still all the planets left. Each planet represents something in life, and they also rule over particular signs. The next placement I want to discuss is your Mercury. Mercury is a pretty important planet because it represents communication and the mind, how we make decisions and process information. Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury. So this comes into play with both expression and contemplation. So if your Mercury is in a sign that is more introverted and shy, then that is how you will communicate. If you are ruled by a sign that is more intense, emotional, and or expressive, this is how you will communicate. It determines if you are the speak before you think or think before you speak type. So not only does Mercury rule how we communicate and think, but it also rules over transportation, language, obviously, because communication is language, right? Business and economics. So when you hear Mercury these days, when you hear the word Mercury, what's the first thing you think of? Mercury retrograde, right? Yes, the dreaded Mercury retrograde. Mercury is the closest planet to the sun, and it is the planet that goes in a retrograde the most frequently, about 3 to 4 times a year. So yay for us. Ugh, such a yuck time. But what makes it yuck? And what the heck is retrograde? When a planet goes retrograde, it means that it moves in an opposite direction to planet Earth. Planets move from east to west around the sun, and when Mercury turns to move from west to east instead, that's when Mercury is in retrograde. So going backwards with a planet that controls communication, business, technology, and transportation is not ideal. Arguments and misunderstandings abound. Making big investments or signing contracts is definitely a bad idea. Been there, because some information may be missing or prove to be misleading, or issues may arise. And transportation can be a pain. More traffic issues, maybe repairs that need to be made you weren't expecting. Mercury retrograde, you are tough. The best thing to do during a retrograde is just be reflective and maybe more thoughtful with your words, because again, communication is askew, and maybe think real long and hard before you speak. But also to remind yourself that you're in retrograde. Just being aware helps a lot. So this is why it is important to know which sign your Mercury is in, so you can have a deeper understanding of your thought process and communication style, which can in turn help your relationships with others, yourself, and even your occupation. All right, so what about love, sex, relationships? The juicy stuff. Well, let's be honest. How many of us as teens or even now compare our zodiac compatibility with those we have a crush on? It's funny. We want to see if the stars are aligned for us with our love. I still combine birth charts for my friends to see if they are compatible all the time, usually by request. Well, 2 planets come to mind in the romance department, and that is Venus and Mars. Venus represents relationships and romantic attraction, whereas Mars represents passion and physical attraction. So think of Venus as the heart and soul of relationship, where Mars is the libido. Venus is also responsible for how we spend our money, our material possessions, our personal tastes, the surroundings we enjoy, like aesthetics, the simple little pleasures of life that bring us joy. But it is ultimately the planet of love and money. And Venus rules over Libra and Taurus. So depending on the sign Venus was in when you are born, this is going to affect how you demonstrate love and what you expect in love or are attracted to in love. And the same for money. As for Mars, it is the planet of action, passion, competition, temper, assertion, separation, and even war. Mars is primal and all about action. It embodies the animal instinct in us, how we compete, how we express our desires and enthusiasm, and how we pursue our goals. So depending on which sign your Mars lands on, that is going to reveal how you assert yourself in these areas. And Mars rules over Aries. Okay, let's take a little break and listen to some tunes. For this set of 3 songs, I'm going to get a little top 40 on you. How about some pop, right? And I'm going to start with Virgo Nick Jonas. Here is Jealous. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed the pop vibes there. After Nick Jonas, we had fellow Virgos Niall Horan of One Direction fame with his single Slow Hands. And the last song was Want to Want Me by Jason Derulo. Have you guys seen Jason Derulo dance? It's so impressive. I love watching people that can dance. I find it so intriguing that people can move their bodies that way. I also thought that those 3 songs represented the Mars energy we just discussed really well. So the next two planets that I want to discuss are the social planets, and that is Saturn and Jupiter. I like to call Saturn the parental planet, and I'm not the only one. It is often referred to as the father figure planet. Saturn is all about responsibility, limitations, traditions, and structure. It keeps us in check and restrains us. And while all these constraints are a drag, they are a huge part of our society and way of life, so they are vital and important. So when you look at which sign Saturn was in when you were born, it will shed light on how you handle responsibility. It will reveal your fears and your personal limitations. This can really vary for each person. Someone with a Saturn in, say, Libra could really struggle with debating what to do too much, like weighing out all the options until they might miss the opportunity. Whereas someone who has their Saturn in Capricorn, which, by the way, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, might really appreciate the structure and want to stick to the rules. And then someone with a Saturn in Leo or Aries, any of the fire signs really, Sagittarius, they will be all about pushing limits, jump in, feet first, making their own rules, doing it how they want. This can really go many different ways when it comes to rules, right? So where your Saturn resides sign-wise is incredibly important for such a critical and necessary influence. Now, where Saturn is all business and structure, Jupiter is freedom, growth, expansion, good fortune, and higher learning. Saturn is how you keep yourself in check, whereas Jupiter is how you liberate yourself. Success, prosperity, and manifestation are Jupiter's realm. This is a jolly, happy planet. It's signifying what drives you towards your bliss and happiness, your sense of adventure, your luck, and how you philosophize. Your Jupiter placement signifies what things have the potential to grow and how you may succeed in your life. It is the optimist of the chart. If you have a sign in Jupiter that is a little on the unmotivated sign, that can lead to excess and laziness. This planet can be a bit hedonistic. So let's hope your Saturn sign will be strong enough to regulate you. Jupiter rules over Sagittarius naturally, as well as Pisces. Now, we've been talking about birth charts for a minute now, right? So I want to break away from planetary placement discussion for just a moment and discuss something that we have all heard of and probably have the wrong impression of, and that is karma. But before we start with that, I want to bring up universal law. There are 12 universal laws, which is interesting, isn't it? Considering there are 12 zodiac signs. Anyway, universal laws are definite and not biased. Everyone is affected by them, and no one, I mean no one, can escape them, just like of gravity. It's there, it's in place, it pertains to all, nothing you can do about it. So one of those laws is the law of cause and effect, and this law is often referred to as karma. Karma is a word meaning the result of a person's actions as well as the actions themselves. In fact, karma is a Sanskrit word that roughly translates to action. According to the theory of karma, what happens to a person happens because they caused it with their actions. Karma is not about punishment or reward, which is a common misconception. Karma is the cycle of cause and effect. We are held responsible for our actions, and even more so for the intention of our actions. When one deliberately does something, an action, karma is accrued. It is the intent of one's action that generates the karma, and it can be good and it can be bad. So how does that affect our birth charts? Well, let's sidestep that for a second and go even deeper. A lot of it has to do with your past lives, specifically your most recent one, the one before this life. And then that one might have been influenced by the one before it and the one before it, and usually it is. And that is because your soul has karmic debts and bonds, and you can't get rid of them until you break that karmic cycle. Your actions in the past have set up your current circumstances in this life. So before you come back to have your new incarnation, You are set up with the perfect and most precise birth chart to reflect your karma from your most recent incarnation. This may sound confusing, so I'm going to read a couple paragraphs from world-renowned astrologer and best-selling author Linda Goodman's book, Star Signs. She puts it perfectly. She says, "The less you believe in astrology, the more your chart fits you like a tight glove. And that's because you haven't yet learned how to graduate from a pawn in the chess game to a king or queen." And what she's talking about with chess is basically the game of life. So it's always interesting to read the birth chart of a skeptic and watch the shock when the smallest detail in that person's life is exposed, which spooks him or her or they into wanting to know more about this silly parlor game, with the dawning awareness that the art and science of astrology is neither silly nor a game. Except for those newspaper and magazine astrological predictive columns they call a horoscope, which have no more relationship to true astrology than the game of Monopoly has to actual real estate transactions. I'm going to pause right there. That cracks me up. I do have to say, I love a good horoscope. And I don't know who does the astrology for horoscopes in certain publications, but I've often felt the same way looking at horoscopes, like, how legit is this? There are some good ones out there, but some are just, like she said, Monopoly money. Okay, back to what she was saying here. So, you see, while you're still uninitiated, the planetary movements keep you in line, prevent you from drifting too far afield of your karmic obligations. Only when you believe in, then investigate, and finally comprehend astrology and numerology are you released from the restrictions placed on you by your birth chart. There's an ancient wisdom that teaches the chart of a saint is impossible to read. Why? Because the saint has risen above the natal chart and is free of it. Enlightenment causes your personal aura to vibrate at a vastly increased rate of angstrom units per second. This vibratory frequency makes you immune to the electromagnetic vibrations bombarding you from the cosmos in a pattern commensurate with the positions of the planets when you drew your first breath, at which instant the more than 40 billion electric cells in your brain were programmed like a computer, which is precisely what the brain is. I want to stop right there. I know I stumbled over that word, but let's stop and think about what Linda just said in this book. At the time you drew your first breath, there were electromagnetic vibrations pulsing out from the planets, and it affects you, right? And then the 40 million plus electric cells, 40 billion cells turned on. Okay, so there you have it. That's how you're connected. Energy, right? But it's more than that. You might say that enlightenment is a form of deprogramming, granting immunity from the control of your destiny by planetary movement. The same is true of the force of karma, which is what planetary movement is all about. Ignore karma's rules and it keeps a tight and relentless rein on your life. But when you grow to care enough about yesterday, today, and tomorrow, when you begin to see these as an eternal now and not separate slices of time, then you'll know how to take over the reins of your personal destiny. In fact, to ordain exactly how it shall be. Seek the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Free of the karmic yoke. One final example of the astrological chart and its relation to your karmic destiny, and that is, imagine your horoscope as a karmic playpen, where you are confined for your own good to work out your necessary karma. In the microcosm example of the baby, when it grows stronger and wiser, it's lifted out of the playpen and has the freedom to wander about more or less as it chooses. The same with you when you've grown spiritually strong enough and mentally wise enough to wander by yourself and make your own mistakes, aka new karma, if you choose, which we hope you don't. This is called being under the law of instant karma, with karma from all past lives erased and paid in full. which is a heavy soul test in itself, as we'll soon see. And I'm going to stop right there. I do apologize for stumbling over some words there. I hope you were able to get what she was saying. You're going to have karmic bonds and debts, and they are set in place, and your birth chart reflects that in your next life. And it isn't until, like she said, you stop viewing time as pieces of time, but view it as all as one, and realize that you are not perfect. You are only human. Yes, we are souls having a human experience, not humans having a spiritual experience. It's a famous quote, right? But it's true. But while we are here, we are only human, and no one is perfect. But the best thing you can do is try to attain enlightenment. And that is exactly what she's talking about. You are going to be constricted by your birth chart and by your karmic bonds and debts until you learn to break them. And people go through this life not doing anything about it. Like she just said in this book, if you allow karmic law to just be in charge, then what are you going to do about it? Or are you going to work on it? Are you going to say, you know what? I did this person wrong, or this happened to me. I have some toxic traits. I have some things I need to work on. And that's what it's all about. While I'm riffing off this, here's the thing. That's what the show is going to be about in a lot of ways. We're going to talk about karma a lot. We're going to talk about past lives a lot. We're going to talk about those kind of energies, and we are going to talk about bettering ourselves, enlightening ourselves, owning the things that don't serve us or suit us or others. And this is just the tip of the iceberg, folks. Today, I'm easing you in with some basic birth chart information. But as the show progresses, I hope that you can grow and learn with me as we dive deep into all of these things, because they really are all connected, which in turn brings me to the 12 universal laws. There are 12 universal laws, as I stated, and they all have to do with each other. They all tie in, and they will be discussed frequently on the show, and we will have a show dedicated just to the 12 universal laws soon. That being said, I think it's definitely time for a music break, don't you? And you know, I think it's time we play the 3 biggest Virgo superstars that, in my opinion, of course, this is my opinion, you may disagree, and that's all right. But I think I'm in the majority when I say they are definitely the top 3 Virgo artists of all time. Are you ready to hear them? Let's do it. Three of the biggest stars of all time, and all 3 of them Virgos. Of course, that was Freddie Mercury, born on September 5th, with his band Queen singing Another One Bites the Dust. Another really badass bass line, that song. And then the king of pop, Michael Jackson, with Dirty Diana. Michael Jackson was born on August 29th. And then Queen Bee herself with Formation. Beyonce was born on September 4th. Oh man, all 3 of those songs are so good. All right, so we took a little break from planetary placement in birth charts, and it's time to get back to that. We still have a few more planets to go. Okay, so it's time we talk about Uranus. The maturity level here is high, guys. I mean, it's just, I can't help it. Come on, it's funny. All right. So this planet rules Aquarius, which is the innovative, unique, think outside the box, humanitarian, slightly quirky, go against the grain sign of the zodiac. Its ruling planet, Uranus, is rebellious, a bringer of sudden change, awakening, and shock or surprise. Uranus stays in a sign for approximately 7 years, so it is a generational planet. What does that mean? It means they take so long to complete their orbit that everyone born within a multi-year period will have that planet in the same sign. So while in that sign, it makes a similar impression on all those born during that period. On the collective level, it influences the cultural pulse of a given time period. So Uranus can set us free when we've become too by the book. So while its influence is disruptive and brings about abrupt change, accidents are associated with this planet, a crisis tends to sometimes awaken us or put us in a place to force change or restart. Sometimes it makes us feel more alive and aware. Uranus can remind you of what your real desires are, not what you've been conditioned or forced to think you want. The truth comes out, and that is one of my favorite things. That's what I hope to inspire in a lot of you. So, house placement. We haven't talked about that. We've talked about planetary properties and what they're in charge of, but we haven't really touched on house placement. There are 12 houses, and it's vitally important with generational planets. We have not gotten house placements in this episode, like I said, and we probably won't, but we will in the future, in the very near future, probably the next episode. So let's move on to other generational planets. The next one being Neptune. Neptune rules over Pisces and is the planet associated with dreams and spirituality, youthful illusion, confusion, inspiration, psychic awareness, enlightenment. And in its worst placement, it can influence addiction, deception, guilt, and deceit. Neptune changes signs every 14 years. So this planetary placement, again, affects a large group of people, but the placement in houses for your chart will be the deciding factor, and that has to do with time and location of birth. The next planet would be Pluto, and Pluto represents transformation and rebirth. It is the furthest planet from the sun, and it rules over Scorpio. Pluto can be downright scary sometimes. It's incredibly powerful, forcing us to face our deep fears and how to transmute them and get over our egos, which is no easy task, but necessary. It rules over the dark things in this world, devastation. I mean, the dark things. I'll let your imagination do the guessing there, but it serves its purpose for us. It makes us purge while acknowledging hard things. It takes this planet between 12 and 31 years to change signs. Right now, it is in Capricorn, and it has been since 2008. It will transition out of Capricorn in 2024. This planet reminds me of the Tower card in tarot decks, which we will definitely cover in later episodes, tarot and oracle cards. And for those that pull cards, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Alrighty, that just about covers the planets and what they are in charge of and what signs they rule over. Oh, and for the record, the sun rules over Leo and the moon rules over Cancer. I forgot to mention that earlier when discussing sun and moon signs. I hope this sheds some light on natal charts, and I highly encourage you to do your birth chart. It's a lot of fun to see how incredibly accurate these things are, not to mention it may shed some light on certain behaviors and traits of yours. In the future, we will discuss the 12 houses in the zodiac and what they represent and how they affect your birth chart. And we're coming to a close with Celestial Sundays. We've only got a handful of songs left. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off with another Virgo female artist. This debut album of hers came out in the late 90s, and my teenage self loved it. So I think we'll play something of hers, and that is Fiona Apple, and the song is First Taste. All right. That last song was Dreams by the Cranberries. Dolores O'Riordan singing vocals there. She was born on September 6th. And before that, of course, was Fiona Apple with The First Taste from her debut album, Title. Both those songs take me back to my teenage days in the 90s. For the final song of today's episode, I would like to dedicate it to my most beloved special Virgo in my life. My first best friend, my sounding board, the level head I need when emotions are high, and the person with my favorite laugh in the entire world, my sister Courtney. This song is special to her and her husband, and the name of the song is very fitting for the theme of our show. So I started with Van Morrison, and I am going to close with him as well. Thank you so much for spending your Sunday morning with me. I hope you will join me again here next Sunday on Shady Pines Radio, and I hope I was able to teach you something. Please be kind and have a blessed day.